Saluton, parolas Tomaso. Feliĉan Ĵaŭdon. Okay, so maybe you've noticed that it's Thursday and it's just me, so what's going on? So Logan and I had a pretty full weekend and did not get around to filming the next lesson of Lernu con Logano, so we decided to skip it a week, and so rather than try to rush it, we would take our time with it, do a good job with it, and in the meanwhile, thought I'd put up this video with a few things to think about in the meanwhile. So here we go. The first thing I wanted to mention was just to let people know a little bit more about the channel that we're working on here, Esperanto Variety Show. If you click down below, there should be a link that says Esperanto Variety Show. And if you look at that, it'll bring you to the main page. And down below there are some playlists of other videos that we've done elsewhere, either with other channels or some of the ones I did on the Mr. Two-String channel. So the idea is that this is not going to be just Esperanto lessons, but there's going to be music and skits and whatever. But just in the meanwhile, the Lernu con Logano ended up taking up a lot of our time, so that's what we're focusing on now. I just wanted to mention that there is different kind of stuff that's going to be on the way. So I hope that you will enjoy this enjoy the Lernu con Logano course, and also once you get a little bit of Esperanto under your belt, that we'll be able to bring some other stuff for you that will be interesting and enjoyable. So one thing that we had been looking at in the course was the Mazi series. You guys are almost, if you've been keeping up with the suggested episodes that we've had so far, you're coming up near the end of the first story. There are actually two stories. There's Mazi and Gondolando, and there's another story about Mazi revenas al Gondolando. So we're going to wrap up the first story by the end of the course here. So those of you who are watching this sort of live, that is right after, shortly after I release it, you're waiting for the next episode to come out, you can finish up the Mazi course in the meanwhile, the Mazi videos, that is. If you're watching this in your own time, probably still worth taking a look at it. I'll have a link to probably this moment in the video. If you've been following along, you'll have reached about lesson 5 by now. I have a link down below. That's the one where the computer goes crazy and starts making all sorts of copies of Sylvia. And there's the one line that says, "Kiom da princinoi estas?" Right? How many? What does that mean? Kiom da princinoi estas? How many princesses are there? So I don't know if we talked about kiom da, but that's a good thing to know. There's that little word da that's used to connect quantities. So any word, the word kiom, or any question that would be answered by kiom, would be connected to the item measured with da. So we want to know how many princesses. We say kiom da princinoi. That da is it's required, and it's kind of like of, but we don't say of in English. So kiom da princinoi, how many princesses. Which brings us to another common line that they've been using a lot in Mazi, which is Chioma. So we say Chioma. What does Chiom mean? Chiom is how many or how much, and that a is the same as the a ending that we put on numbers. There's a phrase in the Mazi course that they've used quite a bit, especially since Mazi likes to eat the clocks, and that phrase is Chioma hora estas. Don't believe we've talked about it up to this point. The word Chioma comes directly from the word Chiom, which we talked about in a previous lesson. Chiom, as we know, means how much, and Chioma, the a on the end, that means that it's kind of like a number with an a on the end. So if we know that something is the first, or the second, or the third, we could ask Chioma to get that information. So Chioma hora estas is what time is it? Literally, it's how manyth. Chioma hora estas. So if we want to know it's the first hour, or the second hour, or the third hour, that would be la unua horo, la dua horo, la tria horo. So to ask what time it is, we say Chioma. Speaking of time, we say Chioma horo estas. Oh, ni vidu, kioma horo estas? Oh, estas kvarono antau io. It's a quarter till something. Actually, sure, what time it is? Probably quarter to 2. Anyway, whoosh! So we have Chioma. So we have Chioma horo, which is literally how manyth hour, or what time is it? There's a set of graphics in the Mazi video in lesson, I believe it's in lesson 5 still, that's has to do with the word malhelijas. And a couple things to think about with that word. It's kind of interesting. One is we say malhelijas je la sepa. That means, if you've seen it in the episode, you kind of figure out it means it gets dark at 7 o'clock. So malhelijas, so we have the word hel, which means sort of bright or light, malhela, which means dark, and then the ij ending, which means it gets dark. Malhelijas je la sepa. What you notice about that, another thing, is there's no real subject to that sentence. Sometimes we call these weather verbs or impersonal verbs, and that is a case when you use, this is a little different from in Esperanto than it is in English. In English we would say, it gets dark at 7 o'clock. It gets dark at 7. And that little word it up in front is just there sort of taking up space. There is no actual it that gets dark. Well, the world gets dark, or the area around us gets dark, or the sky gets dark. It just means darkness sort of happens, right? So in Esperanto, we don't mess around with that extra word that's just sort of there holding places. So we simply say malhelijas je la sepa. And the reason why I mentioned weather verbs, another common word that you'll hear that works that way is pluvas. P-L-U-V-A-S. Pluvas means it's raining. And that is itself a whole sentence. Pluvas. Tu pluvas? Yes, pluvas. Right? Is it raining? Yes, it's raining. And it's the same sort of thing. There is no actual it that is raining. It's just, you could say the sky is raining, or the clouds are raining, or it doesn't work that way. It is raining. It is there to take up space. So when there's no actual it that's doing the thing, chances are pretty good you'll use a weather verb. You'll see some sentences that start simply with the word estas, sort of in the same category. You could say, I don't know if you can see it, I'm sure you can see it in the picture, estas kvar tasoj sur tiu breto. Estas kvar tasoj. So the subject, we're talking about the 4 cups. Estas kvar tasoj. So you could think of it as 4 cups are on the shelf, or you could just simply say there are 4 cups on the shelf, if you're going to translate it. Either way, if you see a sentence starting with estas, it often means there is or there are. You could also say estas vero que such and such, right? So it is true that, fill in the blank there. Estas vero que mia nomo estas Tomaso. It is true that my name is Thomas. And again, we don't need an it there like you do in English, because there's no actual it. What's true is that what's true is the thing I'm saying about my name. Estas vero que mia nomo estas Tomaso. And sort of bringing this back full circle, we've got we're talking about time. Kioma horo estas. What time is it? Estas la tria horo. Again, there's no it with this one because there's no actual it that is 3 o'clock. It's just, that's the time. The time is, well, yeah, there's no actual it that is 3 o'clock. It just, 3 o'clock is happening right now. So Mazi and Carlo spent a little bit of time looking for the princess, and there's a scene with a house, and they start talking about the different stories of the house. The word for story is etaggio, and if you have a chance to watch that part of the episode again, notice how they're describing the floors as they're zooming in on which window they're looking at. If they're talking about the ground floor, that's the level where people could go in right in the door. And they point up at the next level above there, and they call that la unua etaggio. And above that is la dua etaggio. So in America, in the U.S., we would say the ground floor is the first floor, and then the first floor above the ground is the second floor. In Esperanto, or most of the Esperanto-speaking world, as it were, the first floor is actually the first floor above ground. So watch out for that if you're ever talking to somebody from another country. There's a sentence in the Mazi film that I made a note of that I'll read, because I want to make sure I get it right. It caught my attention. De kie ili ĉiuj venas ĉi tien. So that's kind of a fun sentence, because we're thinking about correlatives, and there's a lot of information in there that we can look at and review with the correlatives from, I believe that was lesson 5. De kie. So do you guys remember what kie means? Kie, K-I-E, means where. So de kie means from where. De kie ili ĉiuj venas ĉi tien. So then we've got another correlative there, which is ĉiuj. And that means, you remember, that means everybody. And then finally, the last two words are ĉi tien. So first of all, we'll talk about that word ĉi. Ĉi is a particle, or a little word that means, it shows closeness. So I could say tie, 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 right? Tie, and I could talk about all these different locations sort of by pointing at them. But if I wanted to sort of reference two locations at the same time, the closer one I would add the word ĉi. So it could be tie kai tie ĉi, or you could also say tie kai ĉi tie. The location of the ĉi, whether it comes before or after, doesn't make a big difference. Let the garbage truck go by. So notice on the last two words, there's something interesting happening there that's related to something we talked about in a previous lesson. So we talk about the prepositions of location, and so this is a preposition like on or under, right? On is a location, under is a location, in front of is a location. Any of these things that describe a location that you can be in, if there's motion towards that location, then you add an N. So we could say en la ĉambro, in the room, or into the room, we add an N, like we talked about. En la ĉambron, right? And the same thing works with the word tie. So de kie ili venis, I forgot it already. De kie ili ĉiuj venis ĉi tien. There's an N on the last word to show that ĉi tie is the location, and they're coming into this location. So from where are they coming? From where are they all coming into this location? De kie ili ĉiuj venas ĉi tien. Remember when Carlo and Mazi are I believe they're in a shed, and they can hear Sylvia calling. Carlo says, "Vocas Sylvia, vocas Sylvia." And it means Sylvia is calling. Voci means to call. But notice the word order. Vocas Sylvia. Sylvia is the subject of the sentence, even though the verb is coming first. The last grammatical point to mention is from, I believe, episode 6 of Mazi, where they're talking about comparisons. So I don't think we've gotten to that in the free Esperanto course yet. So you could say somebody's big, you could say somebody's small. I think we know how to say that. Like, if you want to say that I'm big, Tomaso, what's the next word? Tomaso estas granda, right? And chances are, now if you want to say if you're big, I don't know how big you are if you're watching this, but chances are pretty good that I'm bigger than you are. I'm 198 centimeters tall. That's 6'6" to the Americans out there. And so chances are pretty good that I'm, let's just say tall, let's use that word. So, vi estas alta. and that means you are tall. So I want to say that I am taller than you. I would say mi estas pli alta. There's that word pli, and that's used in comparisons when you want to say that one thing is more of another, more than another, more of something. So it's kind of like right? So we can say tall, taller. We have alta and pli alta. So if we want to say something is the most tall, we have the word plej. Mi estas la plej alta membro de mia familio. Let me put that on the board. Mi estas la plej alta membro de mia familio. You have an idea what that means? I am the tallest member of my family. The other thing you can do with this is use the word mal, which makes a word an opposite, and you can put it in front of pli. So if you're not as tall as I am, I could say vi estas mal pli alta, and there's another word here I'm going to show you, ol. In this case it means than. Mi estas mal pli alta ol vi. That means I'm less tall than you are. You could also put the word mal on the word alta, which more or less means the same. Vi estas... Oh. Now you know how much I clipped out of here. Chioma hora estas? Ni vidu. Unu. Du. Estas la dua horo. Where was I? Alta. Yeah. So, vi estas mal pli alta and vi estas pli malalta mean more or less the same thing. You're taller than I, or you're less tall than I am, or you're shorter than I am. Emphasis might be a little different, but for the most part it means the same thing. Okay, so that is it for our review of Mazi. Wanted to mention that I'm hoping to have some news in a little bit that might be of interest to some of you that are watching and learning and making good progress. So be sure to check. I'll at least put it in the description of the next Lernu con Logano, or if I do another sort of less formal video, I might put it in there. But so that'll be fun, so watch for that, and yeah, I will say goodbye. Ĝis la venonta fojo, mi vidos vin tiam. Ĝis revido. Ooh, ĝis revido. Thank you to the patrons who are supporting this channel. You guys really do mean a lot and do a lot to encourage us through your support, so thank you one more time. And until next time, ĝis la venonta fojo, ĝis revido.